Hello YouTube, I'm Faninder. In this tutorial, I will explain about this constructor and this parameterized constructor. We know that one method can call another method either with respect to object or with respect to class. That is, we can establish communication between multiple methods. Similarly, in order to establish the communication between the constructors of current class, we must use these two functions, that is this for default constructor and this with parameters constructor for calling the parameters constructor. This method is used to call the current class default constructor from the current class parameterized constructor, and this method is used to call current class parameterized constructor from the category of other constructors. Here the dot represents parameters that are passed to the constructor. Okay, one rule that we must remember while using this method is when we are using either this function or this function, that is method, in the current class constructor, they must be used always as first executable statement. That is, they must be the first executable statement in the constructor definition. Otherwise, we get a compile time error. So now I will give an example by writing a program. So I will name the class name as example, and then I will use two data members, int a and int b, and constructor in here, and I will write statements as system dot out dot println in default constructor, and I will set the values as a equals 1 and b equals 2, and then I will just print the values of a and b. This is an error here, let me rectify it. I'll just print the values in here. Value of a is value of b is. So this is our constructor definition. our default construction definition. Now I will write another constructor. This is parameterized constructor and it will take only one value. I'll just copy this whole thing. This is parameterized constructor with only one parameter in it. And in this I will just equal the values a to x and b to x, and this is going to print the values. And then I will write another constructor definition. Two parameterized constructor so this is going to say double parameterized constructor, and I will equal it as a equals a and b equals b. Well, if you have seen my previous tutorial, this is going to be an error, means logical error. So we have to place it as this dot a and this dot b. So this is a class definition which has the logic that we use. Now let me define another class for execution logic. Class test2, and in this class I will just initialize the object of an object of example. New example. So the object obj is going to be initialized with respect to constructor, that is the default constructor, but we are not either using the parameters single parameterized constructor or double parameterized constructor. So if I want to use both the single parameterized constructor and double parameterized constructor, I will write something like this. This of from single parameterized constructor, from default constructor, I will call the single parameterized constructor. Look at here, the single parameterized constructor takes parameter as integer type. So now let me pass some value as 100. So this, and in this constructor I want to call the double parameterized constructor, this of 10 and 20. So let me save this file as test2 dot Java. Let me go to the command prompt. Java C test2.java. So it has compiled successfully. Now I'll run the file. Java test2. So look at here. In double parameterized constructor, in that is the single parameterized constructor, and in default constructor. First, we have initialized the object with respect to by using the default constructor. But in here, the double parameters constructor is executing first. So why is like that? Because though we have called the default constructor, we have used this constructor, that is, we are calling other constructor with respect to this constructor. So the control goes to, here we are calling the single parameter constructor, and when the control comes to single parameter constructor, it again finds this constructor with double parameter. So the control again shifts back to example, that is the example constructor with double parameter. In this definition, there is no this statement. So that is this constructor. So it just going to execute the statements in it, and again control comes back to here. So it will continue with the next line of statements, executes them, and control again shifts back to over here. That is the default constructor. Similarly, it will again execute it, and the control goes back from the calling function to the calling function. So since there are no other line of codes here to execute, so that will be the end of the program. The double parameters constructor first, and then the single parameters constructor, and then the default constructor. Look, if in this program, in this example, if we write this default constructor in here, then it is going to be a continuous loop. Means first we have initialized the object with respect to default constructor, and then the default constructor calls the parameterized constructor, and the parameterized constructor in turn calls the double parameterized constructor. But if we place this statement, the control again shifts back to the default constructor, and in default constructor we are again calling the parameters constructor. So it is going to be a continuous loop, and will in turn results in error called stack overflow error, which is not recommended. So we should be careful when we are dealing with this type of constructors. I will again make some changes to this code so that you can understand better. We have seen how the code works, how the execution works when we initialize like in this way. Let me show you some other type. I will call double parameters constructor, and from this constructor I want to call the default constructor. So I will place here just this of this. Now the control goes to here, the default constructor of the class, and in this class we have this of 100, means it is calling the parameter single parameters constructor of the class. So again the control comes back to here, but look at this. In this class, in this definition, the single parameters constructor again in turn calls the double parameters constructor. I already said that this is not recommended, so I'll just delete this line. I'll save this file, compile it, and then run it. So now look at the execution flow. Here the first single parameters constructor is executed, then the default constructor, then double parameters constructor. What I wanted to say is, in the previous example we have initialized with the object obj using the default constructor. We have initialized using the default constructor. The default constructor in turn called the single parameters constructor. The single parameters constructor in turn called the double parameters constructor. So first the double parameters constructor executed, then the single parameter constructor, and then finally the default constructor. In this example we have initialized the object with by using double parameters constructor. The double parameters constructor in turn called the default constructor, and the default constructor in turn called the single parameters constructor. So the single parameters constructor executed first, then the default constructor, then the double parameters constructor. So what I wanted to say is, for example, if we have three constructors, say default, single, and double, or so many, if the flow of calling is 1 2 3 and the flow of execution is 3 2 1, first the double parameters constructor is going to execute, next the single parameters constructor, and finally the default constructor. That's all with the keyword this. I hope you have understood. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.